you.
And I gave you a very specific example. Every president retains the right to defend the United States against an imminent threat. Yes, if there are just give you an example, Iranian drones deployed in Venezuela that could threaten the United States, we most certainly will address that, even if it's located in Venezuela. But we hope we don't get to that point. We don't expect to get to that point. I don't think that we're not trending in that direction. That's a fact. But
thank you, guys. Obviously, we had a classified hearing, so the details of which we can't discuss. It's, I believe, our 22nd or 23rd bipartisan engagement. We'll continue to engage with Congress on this. We're headed to the House now to do a similar briefing and provide updates on this counter-drug mission, which is focused on dismantling the infrastructure of these terrorist organizations that are operating in our hemisphere, undermining the security of Americans, killing Americans, poisoning Americans. And this has been a highly successful mission that's ongoing and continued, and we're pleased to be here today to update Congress on how that's developing and how that's moving forward. As I said, I believe it's our 22nd, 23rd such engagement, certainly been at least the 4th or 5th that I've been involved in, and those will remain and be ongoing. Okay?
You know, there's an old saying, when the drumbeat changes, the dance must follow. Washington is hearing a new kind of drumbeat right now, and the question is, are we ready for it? In this tense exchange, the fight isn't just political. It's about how America protects itself in a world that no longer plays by old rules. Stay with me, because this one cuts deep. And if you appreciate sharp, real conversations like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share Capitol Review.
Gentlemen, do I understand that you're yielding to Senator Duckworth? Is that correct? Both of you? Senator Van Hollen? Are you going to yield to Senator Duckworth? Okay. Senator Duckworth.
I thank my colleagues. My daughter has dental surgery, so they're being very kind so I can get her through that. Thank you. Mr. Secretary, last March, the President invoked the Alien Enemies Act, a notorious wartime law last used for Japanese internment. He said that he was responding to the Maduro regime's supposed invasion or other acts of war against the United States. But in recent weeks, you, the Department of Justice, and our friends across the aisle have repeatedly said that we are not at war with Venezuela. Secretary Rubio, if that is true and we are not at war with Venezuela, will you advise the President to rescind his invocation of the Wartime Alien Enemies Act?
Well, that was a mechanism to remove people from our country that prevent grave danger. So, for example, we know for a fact that Tren Agua is a very dangerous gang. In fact, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I may have been the first member of Congress.
This is a wartime act, Mr. Secretary.
Well,
are we currently at war with Venezuela?
No, we're not in a state of war in Venezuela.
Okay, the Supreme Court has described the Alien Enemies Act as a wartime power, our Supreme Court. And before now, the Alien Enemies Act was only invoked during the War of 1812, World War I, World War II, when it was used to intern thousands of innocent civilians. Are you really arguing that the President should be able to wield an internment law?
No, but we're talking about two separate things here. So you're talking about the state of Venezuela, or are describing the regime. And we're talking about, but what the President designated.
Invoked the Alien Enemies Act.
I know, Senator, but let me be clear with you. No, but what the President was talking about are these gangs that have, and these narco-trafficking groups that are waging war on the United States. There's no doubt. These groups have waged war on the United States. They have waged, for example, Tren Agua is not just a criminal gang presence in our street. It is a criminal gang directly responsible for narco-trafficking.
The Trump administration has acknowledged that the vast majority of the men it rounded up and deported to torture under this law had no criminal records whatsoever.
We didn't torture anybody.
Over 75%.
Who did we torture? We haven't tortured anybody. We've arrested people that are members of gangs, and we've deported them. We don't want gang members in our country.
Independent investigations have found that many of the men were here legally. If the administration is willing to lie about who it's targeting under this law, what protections do totally innocent people have against abuse? Again, I want to ask you, will you advise the President to rescind his invocation of the Wartime Alien Enemies Act?
No, of course not. I mean, these are people that are threats to the national security of the United States. But I've described this in hearings in the past, including before you guys.
So you're saying that we're at war?
We are absolutely. When it comes to narco-trafficking groups and criminal gangs that are targeting the United States for criminal activity,
we're in a state of war.
There's no doubt about the fact that we're confronting them in a war-like setting because they're waging war on us.
And do the Geneva Convention
They're waging war against us, and they're enemy combatants as a result of it. And the fact of the matter is that we are confronting these irregular groups, and that's one of the great challenges of the new century in this hemisphere in particular, is that these non-state actors who possess state-like capabilities in terms of their weaponry pose a grave danger to the United States. I don't think any American would dispute that we have cartels that pose a threat to the national security of the United States.
With all of the other laws of when it comes to warfare. I mean, you're saying that he can invoke this wartime power.
No, I'm saying, you're asking me, I'm here to discuss foreign policy and what's in the realm of the Department of State.
Well, you
I think your questions are better directed to the
invoking
Department
the
of
Alien
Justice.
Enemies Act,
But I would tell
which
you
is
that.
a wartime, which is something that
Yeah, but you're
Supreme
asking me a
Court
question
said
that's-
can be invoked during
All right, but
wartime.
you're
And it's
asking
only
me a
been
question
invoked
that's
during the
more
War of
appro-
1812, World War I, and World War II.
You're
It's only
asking
been
me a
invoked 3
question-
times, and this president is invoking it.
Okay, you're asking me a question about the domestic application of a law that's best directed
not
to the
a
Department of
complication.
Justice.
It's
No,
not a
it is,
complication. It's
because you're
very
asking me
simple.
something to opine on something that's in the realm of the Department of Justice in terms of its domestic application. I can tell you that the United States is most certainly confronting terrorist and criminal organizations operating in our hemisphere that pose a grave danger to the United States. Anyone who believes that gangs that flood our country with fentanyl
All right,
or
let me
cocaine
ask you
are
this.
not threats to the United States is not living in reality and certainly does not reflect the opinion of most Americans.
The president already said that he was ready to put American troops in Venezuela again. So we're at war right now.
When did he
So
say
if
that?
things don't go well with the Chavistas you've empowered,
When did the
what
president
is your
say he was gonna put
criteria for
troops in
returning
Venezuela?
a military option, putting you? What is your criteria for returning to a military option and putting boots on?
Well,
the ground?
I don't recall the president saying he was going to put troops in Venezuela. Where did he say that?
I'm asking you, what are your?
But that's what you said. I didn't
Yeah,
remember
the president has
saying
already
that.
said that he was ready to put American troops in Venezuela.
No, I think the
again.
president has said that he retains the right as commander-in-chief to protect the United States against any imminent threats. Maybe that involves troops, maybe that involves air power. We hope, but we don't anticipate that being the case in Venezuela.
I worry that you are playing fast and loose with our nation's
Well, I just gave
military.
you
And
testimony
let me
here
just say,
for
I just want to conclude by
Yeah,
saying,
but I just gave you testimony of how well things are moving forward, not as fast as
yeah, but
everybody
you
would like.
also said
So
that
I-
in 6 or 9 months, if things don't go well, you're going to have to do something else. And the president's already said that he's not ruled out the military option. And you've also just said that, yes, we are at war. The president has
But
wartime
every
powers.
president retains
So
the power
it's
to use military to
reasonable for me
protect-
to ask you,
And I gave you a very specific example. Every president retains the right to defend the United States against an imminent threat. Yes, if there are just give you an example, Iranian drones deployed in Venezuela that could threaten the United States, we most certainly will address that, even if it's located in Venezuela. But we hope we don't get to that point. We don't expect to get to that point.
I don't think that
We're not trending in that direction. That's a fact. But that said, on
the
the one
people of
hand,
America
people
are
here are
worried that
unhappy
this
we're
is a president
cooperating
who
with
engages
Venezuela.
in yet
On the other hand, they
another
want us to
forever
go to
war,
with
Mr.
them.
Secretary.
What's
We don't
that?
need to be in another forever war. And that is the path that we are going towards. And let me just say...
Well, how are we
let me
going towards
conclude-
a
let me
forever
just- let
war
me
if we're
just
dealing with
conclude.
we're
Well,
dealing
you're
with
not
Delcy
ruling out a
Rodriguez every
military
day?
option. You're not going to ask him to rescind his invocation of the Alien Enemies Act. That puts Americans in jeopardy. And let me just say something about the president's recent comments about NATO allies. When I served in Iraq, there were Polish forces there with us. There were British forces there with us. There were Spanish forces there with us. I personally landed in Elzi, España, which came under direct attack by insurgents. Polish troops who have worked with the Illinois military, with the Illinois National Guard for 30 years, died in Afghanistan, Mr. Secretary.
All the president
so I just
wants
wanna
is for
say
NATO to
is
have
that
more
our NATO
capabilities.
allies have stood beside
wants
us,
our allies to
and
have more
we
nav-
need to maintain the strength of that alliance.
I get it.
yield
All
back.
the
Senator, your
president wants is our
time's
allies.
up. Not making much progress here.
Well, let me just
very
say, the
much.
president
Let's-
just wants our allies to have more capabilities to be involved in operations like that, God forbid, in the future if necessary.
That's not what
an
he said.
unreasonable
He said
request.
that they stayed a little behind, and they certainly did not come to our defense. And
Well,
which
not
they
every
did.
country in Europe, not every country in NATO participated in those missions. Some did.
Denmark suffered some of the greatest military casualties.
There's no doubt that many of our allies have stepped forward and provided assistance to us, and there are many others that simply don't have the capability to do it now or in the future.
That's not what the president said.
So
Senator
that's what he
Lee,
was pointing to.
Watching this exchange between Tammy Duckworth and Marco Rubio, you quickly realize this isn't just a policy debate, it's a clash of worldviews. Duckworth stands firm on the letter of the law. She leans on the Alien Enemies Act and history itself. Her message is clear. This law was built for war, not for interpretation, and she's not wrong to raise that concern. There's another proverb that says, "A borrowed knife can still cut deep." History has shown us that when governments stretch power, even with good intentions, the consequences can linger longer than expected. But Rubio steps in with a different lens, one that reflects how many conservatives see the world today. He's not arguing about old definitions, he's talking about present danger. To him, this isn't about Venezuela as a country, it's about criminal networks that move like armies, think like armies, and harm like armies. And if we're being honest, he's touching on something real. The threats America faces today don't always wear uniforms or raise flags. They move in silence, across borders, through systems. As the saying goes, the snake that bites you is not always the one you see. From my perspective, Rubio's argument speaks to a growing frustration, this idea that the rules written centuries ago may not fully cover the battles we're fighting now. You can't fight a 21st century problem with an 18th century mindset and expect perfect results. That's just reality. But here's where it gets complicated, and where Duckworth's warning carries weight. Power is like fire, another old saying goes. It can cook your food or burn your house down. Expanding government authority, even for security, is never a small step. Once that door opens, it doesn't always close easily. Duckworth is essentially asking, what happens when the system gets it wrong? Because no matter how strong the intention, mistakes in government power don't fall on systems, they fall on people. Rubio tries to draw that line carefully. He emphasizes that the focus is on real threats, organized, dangerous actors, not innocent individuals. And from a Republican standpoint, that's a key point. Protecting citizens has to come first. A nation that cannot defend itself risks losing far more than just legal clarity. But still, you can feel the tension. One side fears inaction in the face of danger, the other fears overreach in the name of protection. And here's my honest thought. Both concerns are valid, but leadership is about choosing which risk you're willing to carry. Because as another proverb says, if you stand in the middle of the road, you'll get hit from both sides. Right now, America is standing in that road, trying to balance safety and liberty in a world that's becoming less predictable by the day. At the end of it all, this debate leaves us with a hard truth. There are no easy answers, only tough choices. Do you tighten your grip to protect the nation or loosen it to protect freedom? Either way, the stakes are real. A nation that forgets to guard its gates may wake up without a home. If you want more real, thoughtful breakdowns like this, go ahead and like, subscribe, and share Capitol Review.